As Mike mentioned earlier, we're talking through a series of 4 lessons today and this month on how we worship God in holy expressions. Today we're going to narrow down to you and me having private time with the Lord, just our private time of worship before Him and how essential that is. So in today's text of Luke 10, we can easily see why Martha and Mary were devoted to Him. But I want you to see how they express this, because Martha sees Jesus coming and she's thinking, the Lord is here. I'm sure He needs a good dinner. Let me get this thing together. And she puts on this like Southern hospitality mode with a type A personality. And she's going to serve her Lord. And Mary is thinking, oh, the Lord is here. And let me just sit at His feet and let me just listen to Him. Now I want you to hear, because again, sometimes we kind of pick sides in this. Both of these women are incredibly devoted to the Lord. You shouldn't doubt Martha's devotion to Christ just because she sort of gets this nature wrong about what all is happening. She was inviting Him into the house. She wanted Him. She wanted to serve Him. So her hospitality kicks into gear and she starts using the talents and the gifts that God had given her. She focuses on serving Jesus and the disciples. And she seems to be this kind of get-it-done gal, doesn't she? She's not looking for anything other than to accomplish. And the accomplishment is to serve the Lord and bring comfort to Him while He is in her home. I recognize sometimes we find busyness for Christ easier than stillness with Him. For some reason, Martha just felt compelled to have this outward duty of expressing devotion to God rather than having an inward contemplative moment with Him. So she is preparing to give Jesus something, and all the while, Jesus is wanting to deliver truths to her. Isn't that your life and my life sometimes? I just want to do something for Him. I feel like I need to get this accomplished for Him. And if I would just find myself busy in doing this, it would all be good. And all the while, Jesus is saying, I didn't want to receive anything from you. I wanted to give something to you. So listen to this simple and profound truth. There is one thing necessary. So if you're anxious and you're troubled about many things in this life, Jesus says there is one thing that ought to take top priority in your life, and here it is: to position yourself worshipfully in the presence of Jesus and receive His word. So if you're anxious, if you're troubled, if you're busy, you can't get it all done, you feel like at the end of the day, you didn't get it to where you needed it to be. Here's what Jesus said: man, you missed it all day long. There was one thing that was necessary, one thing that was top priority. You've been doing everything else. You've been distracted and anxious over everything else, and there was one thing that I really wanted you to do, and that one thing is to sit before me, worship me, and receive the word that I have for you today. What is that word that you have for me today? Oh, let me just open the scripture, and let me just read it. Let me engage it. Let me, with the pencil in my hand, read it, knowing that He's speaking to my heart and giving me the truths for my life. See, we say that we don't have time, but it's just the priorities are all out of whack. Man, I struggle there. I told you my default is to be like Martha. We struggle there. I think what Jesus wants us to take away from this text today is there's one thing that's necessary. Let everything else be a servant to that. Let every other priority be below that. There's one thing necessary. Everything else is less necessary.